And this session today, I'm delighted that we'll have so many diverse, cutting-edge businesses located within Sandyford Business District. And it's titled Sandyford Business District, We're Leading Innovation, because that's what Sandyford Business District is about. We have a number of great speakers lined up for us this afternoon. And the first speaker we have, contributor, is Punitha Sinnapan. Punitha is Vice President of Automotive Design and of Innovation Cubic Telecom. Punitha is a leader and experienced solutions architect with great influencing and negotiation skills. Punitha has more than 16 years experience of software, system design, experience in various different industry segments, including 10 years of automotive experience in software, ADAS, autonomous driving, HPC architecture, graphics core technology, computer vision, project management, marketing, business development, customer service excellence. She is an optimistic thinker, visionary, who can quickly grasp and easily explain the big picture. Punitha, that's some bio. You're coming to us with a huge amount of experience, and we look forward to hearing from you about convergence of connected car and smart infrastructure. Over to you, Punitha.
Thanks, Connor, for having me here today. And it's an absolute pleasure to share some insights in automotive and in connected car space. I'm Punitha Sinnapan from Cubic Telecom in Sandyford. As technology evolves, we are seeing a lot of industry investing in digital transformation. A lot of innovative concepts being introduced to the world. With this, a lot of data being generated by devices. How all these data can be collected, analyzed, applied into new services, which we call data farming, becomes crucial element moving forward. Without further ado, let's look at how convergence of connected car and smart infrastructure taking place in current world. Okay, in automotive industry, we are seeing several trend change and focus by every automakers. First one is electrification and consolidation. And from being a traditional manufacturer, everyone looking into how can we support electric vehicle and how can we consolidate all the single components into an integrated domain compute unit as move forward. And there is also a lot of investment being made by every automakers to make sure there is a connectivity element integrated into every vehicle line. And we are seeing a trend more than 80% of vehicle line in the future will be a connected vehicle, because that's going to be the gateway to bring external world into the vehicle in the future. And not only that, so everyone knows autonomous driving, right? So autonomous driving is a big trend, and every OEM has the investment down the line. So everyone is striving to offer L5 solution to customers. And the last but not least is the shared mobility. How do we see all this electrification, connected vehicle, and autonomous driving will open the path for shared mobility, like in the lights of ride sharing and those kind of use cases being widely popular and being adopted by many countries and many cities right now as the smart city is evolving. Just to give you some recap of how automotive industry is evolving. Now, let's look into what Cubic does around this space. Okay, that's a video. Okay, in Cubic, we are offering a solution and helps to enable connected car for every OEM. How do we do that? Right. So when you have a devices, when I say devices, it means like the car or a transport vehicle or a tractor equipped with a telematic unit or connectivity module that enables the Wi-Fi or cellular network infrastructure. And we connect that device into a outer world by enabling the infrastructure. Not just Cubic has our own car network, we also collaborate and enable multiple mobile operator. MNO here refers to the mobile operator. We enable and orchestrate more than 90 MNOs currently, where we are offering services for 3G, 4G, as well as VoLTE, voice over LTE as well. And we are planning to integrate 5G solution early next year in Asia as a starting point for us. And when you enable infrastructure, it gives you access to the cellular infrastructure. And then on top of that, we have our product called Plexa, and this product gives a different view of the data being consumed by a device, where we call it's the main capability that product offer is data traffic segmentation, where it gives a different viewpoint which service is being consumed in the vehicle or on the device, and how much data is being consumed by each of the services. Services here could be application as well. Okay, so that's one of the product that we offer for our customers. And the biggest service, the solution service that we offer our customer is the connectivity management solution. It start from SIM provisioning and to network onboarding and sustaining that vehicle, and the connectivity solution, connectivity management solution for the 15 years of the life cycle of the vehicle is what Cubic does. From enabling a Wi-Fi hotspot within the vehicle to provide subscription management, life cycle management, there are many elements that sits within this connectivity management. So if you see in this diagram, it's not just SIM solution that we offer. We have moved beyond SIM solution, and we add a lot more elements to enable this end-to-end connectivity solution in the connected car space. And when we enable this connectivity management solution, we also bring in OEM's backend system. So OEM has two different backend systems that we work with. One is called device platform. Another one is service platform. Device platform is mainly provides a device management on the device deployed within the vehicle line itself. And service platform is how do they manage all the service integration on that particular platform. So each brand, each car line will have a different configuration, different set of service being offered in this case. So if you look at this diagram from devices and integrated into up until the OEM backend system, there's going to be a lot of data is being generated by the device as well as the backend system. With that, we have integrated data management and insights solution where we offer real-time dashboard as well as a real-time alert manager. It's a highly customizable solution where with this view, they get the ability to understand the data, the device, and user behavior better. And also they can do a early defect prediction with all these tools that we enable for our customers. And by having all these elements integrated and enabled by Cubic, that makes OEM's journey in connected car vision one step closer to integrate all the services. So where we set the path for OEM to bring more and more service being integrated into the vehicle line and enhance the user experience for vehicle owner. Okay, so this is just to give you a summary of what Cubic does in this space. And you might wonder, okay, so can we get this connectivity solution from mobile operator directly? Why Cubic? So yes, definitely they can get this solution from MNO, but not exact solution. But minimum network communication and connectivity solution can be get done by MNO, but by working with Cubase, there are other features that we enable that helps to enhance OEM and user experience with our solution. First one, let's start with the zero touch global deployment. The vehicle can be manufactured any part of the world and deployed anywhere without requires a global roaming solution where, for example, the vehicle can be manufactured in Germany and deployed in US or Japan with the local profile. In the case of Japan, we can enable a local profile with Entity Docomo, where in US we can enable with Verizon, for example. So in that way, it's a cost sensitive solution, and also with our solution that gives them path where in-car Wi-Fi hotspot can be enabled and the user can buy any plan they would like and connect all their devices with the head unit in the vehicle becoming the hub for the connectivity. And career of choice. When you have a multiple family plan, you can enable the vehicle as a device, one of the choice of device in your family plan. And Cubic enables solution to make that happen in US right now. And we also have a with Plexer, we have a service-based, we set the path for OEM to enable service-based revenue generation by for them when they understand the product better, that enables them to expose and introduce new service for their users. And we have a data insight and monitoring like I described earlier. This is differentiating solution that Cubic offered to our customers. And last but not least is customizable or user portal. Different brand, we have a customized portal for the consumer to access and enable the plans that they would like to enable for their vehicle line. And these are just of some key features that we enable as a differentiating solution that we offer to our customer when they work with Cubic. And now let's look into how do we see the future integration of smart infrastructure. As you're already aware, like Cubic set paths for the OEM a few steps ahead in the connected car space, where we reduce a lot of complexity to enable all the connectivity elements in the vehicle. And now with this allows more vehicles to be connected in the future. When more vehicles or more devices is connected in the future, what will that do to infrastructure? In our in Cubic Telecom, we not only enable automotive products, we also support agriculture, energy, and transportation. And with all this industrial segment, we are seeing various type of use cases being introduced from smart parking, smart fueling, e-tolling, e-charging, even ride sharing and robotaxi. Those are the use cases being introduced and that will add more value to users. So the journey with Cubic and the connected car space, it doesn't stop here. And we are looking into what else we can do above the value chain. And with that, Cubic is creating a global service integration framework connecting consumers and OEM to enable frictionless service. Okay, that summarizes what I would like to share with you guys today. Thank you. Back to you, Connor.
Thank you very much, Punitha Sinnapan. That was very insightful. It's amazing how technology has progressed and is progressing over the years. Next up, we have another business from Sandyford Business District, and I am delighted to welcome Susanna Murphy from Zero Latency. Susanna Murphy is the Operations Director with Zero Latency Dublin. Susanna honed her appreciation and eye for innovation across a range of industries, from construction to tech to entertainment. The same drive that drove her to become an international triathlete propelled her to complete her MBA at Smurfit and take on the role of Operations Director at Zero Latency Dublin. So I'd like to welcome Susanna Murphy.
Thank you very much, Connor. Thanks a million for having us in this really cool studio. It's lovely to be here with the Sandyford Business District and lovely to talk to you about the future of virtual reality entertainment. So what I'd like to do is just go back and give a bit of a background about me and my insights across the industries that I have worked in. Then I want to talk about virtual reality, zero latency in particular. And then I'd also love to talk about culture and this huge shift that we now have to make in businesses to try and keep the culture and keep employees happy. So let's just get started. I suppose my background, I was a chartered quantity surveyor. I worked for a number of years in the construction industry here in Ireland, which was extremely exciting, but very traditional. So the teams that I worked with were extremely traditional. I then went back to local Smurfit Business School and did an MBA, where again, working with teams was such a huge part of that course. I moved to then working with Dropbox. There were 8 of us on a team working together to create and to develop the Dropbox European headquarters. A lot of fun, a lot of great insights, a lot of learnings, and I suppose working with teams across a traditional industry like construction and then working to the likes of Dropbox, which would have a very similar culture to all the tech companies, great tech companies here in Dublin. It was incredibly insightful, very, very different. So this kind of culture is extremely important to me. It's something, and here's obviously an old but very, very valid quote from Peter Drucker, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. We've heard that 100 times, but this is certainly my favorite quote and one that I continue to believe in. Zero latency, in my mind, which is where I am now, really helps us to help businesses bring out the best and bring out a bit of fun from employees. And I'm going to go through that just in a second. Let's just go back and check out my cool photo of me on my honeymoon. My husband and I were in Tokyo in Japan. We stumbled across this cool place called Zero Latency. I'm not a gamer, still not a gamer. Neither is he, but we thought this is a cool experience. Let's go and check it out. Our jaws hit the floor after spending half an hour inside a huge 200 square meter space, fighting off hordes of zombies. It was an incredible experience, and we left there thinking, we need to bring this to Dublin. Dublin is ripe for this type of entertainment. You know, really forward-thinking, such a mixed demographic, and we just thought it would be incredible to do so. So we weren't looking for opportunities at our honeymoon, but ended up finding this incredible opportunity. We then came home to Dublin, worked hard to get exclusivity for both Ireland and the UK to bring zero latency arenas to those 2 nations. We opened up Zero Latency Dublin, then a year and a half later after raising capital with a great investor. I'd like to just go now just to explain what zero latency is. It's a very hard concept to explain. On video, hopefully it'll give you a taste, and then obviously when you play it, it's even better. So we might just press play now, please. So, as you can see, That's a lot of fun. That is what you would see somewhat in your headset. I suppose a lot of people's perception of virtual reality is what you can see in that picture there. So that it hasn't really changed since the 80s. In actual fact, it has. A lot of people, and the majority of people that walk through our doors, have never put on a virtual reality headset. And the reactions we get, the reviews we get from people who play that game, it's that same jaw-dropping feeling that my husband and I felt when we were in Tokyo. When we look at the past, this is what we think of. When we then look at the present, virtual reality, we sit in a very small part of that huge spectrum. We sit in what's called entertainment. Virtual reality obviously is so much more vast, where you see it being used in medicine, being used in training. We're only one very small part of that. But what I love about what we do is that we bring teams together, whether it's families or corporate teams. In the future then, if we look at what Zero Latency are doing, they're partnering with the likes of Ubisoft. They're the biggest computer gaming company in the world, and these incredible partnerships are just going to make Zero Latency experience even better. All of the hardware is changing, all of the technology is changing, on a monthly basis, which is just so exciting. So really what you're seeing in your headset is even better, even more real, and even more incredible. What I want to do is just quickly show you a video just to give you a better idea as the outsider what you would be looking at. Okay, so why does Zero Latency differ then from your typical headset that you have in your bedroom or in your sitting room? The difference you can see in that last video is that you've got teams together, working together as part of this social experience where they're fighting off hordes of zombies, they're robots, or else, walking through a puzzle game. What we see at Zero Latency on a daily basis is really, some teams, really quiet teams getting together, and as soon as they go into that room, they put on the headset, they're working hard together to fight off these zombies or robots, and they're having a lot of fun. I think the environment that we're in at the moment, getting that fun out of your employees or out of your teams, it's really hard, right? We're all, working remotely, etc. And what we've seen over the last few months since we were allowed to open back up is that those smaller teams are coming in, they're just having that bit of fun. And, I allude to this at the very start, that culture is so important. It's really hard to keep our employees empowered, having fun, and loving their day to day. And I think we all feel that at the moment, right? That it's just so hard to continue being incredibly happy and positive, okay? So what we see in Zero Latency on a daily basis is just teams getting together and having that bit of fun. It does take people out of their comfort zone. It certainly does. And what we've seen is, as an example, a lot of tech companies who very, let's say, shy teams getting together and really having a bit of a laugh. That picture there shows in the puzzle game, you're looking up at your colleagues who are upside down. So that's the kind of trip that it gives. So I think just to talk about that consideration of team culture, I think more than ever now we really need to hone in on how we make sure that our employees who are sitting at home are having a good time. And what we've been able to do at Zero Latency with all the COVID restrictions and also with social distancing is we've been able to bring those smaller teams together just to have that bit of fun. So thanks a million, Connor.
Sincere thanks to Susanna Murphy, Zero Latency. Susanna is the operations director there. I hope she gave us all a flavour of what it's about. I'm looking forward to trying it out, and I can't wait to do so in the coming weeks, hopefully. Next up, we have Ruth Whelan and also Ailish Daly. They'll join us simultaneously. If I could just introduce Ruth first. Ruth Whelan is the Academy Manager, Beacon Hospital Research. Ruth is the Manager of the UCD Beacon Hospital Academy and Beacon Hospital Research Institute. A physiotherapist by profession, Ruth was instrumental in the establishment of the Lean Healthcare Academy, driving Lean Six Sigma management throughout the organisation, and also established with her colleagues the Beacon Hospital Research Institute. The Institute provides staff, consultants, patients with a platform to translate research outputs into clinical practice and drive innovation throughout the hospital. In addition, Ruth has represented the hospital on many national and state boards. Joining Ruth is Ailish Daly. Ailish is an allied health Beacon Hospital Research Institute. Ailish is an allied therapy manager in Beacon Hospital with a professional background in physiotherapy. She was responsible for the delivery of therapy services in the hospital. Ailish has led various patient-centred innovations, including early rehabilitation for patients recovering from cancer treatment, to help patients achieve their exercise targets. She's also supervised Horizon 2020 funded research studies investigating the role of sensor-based technology in patients' recovery following orthopaedic and oncology surgery. So I'd like to welcome both Ruth Whelan and Ailish Daly.
Thank you. Thank you, Conor. So my name is Ailish Daly. I'm going to start the presentation and Ruth will join in a little while. So to start off, we'd just like to say thank you to Sandyford Business District, Conor and Sarah, for inviting us down today and to present. So we might start by saying, I think anybody that's listening to a talk on health innovation will expect to hear things like immunotherapy, next-gen sequencing, point-of-care testing, biosensors and trackers, and artificial intelligence. And we're going to touch on all of those things through our talk. But I think what we'd like to give is maybe the clinician and the person on the ground's perspective on health innovation and the work that we're doing in the hospital to try and build that culture and continue to continue innovation in the organisation. We'll talk a little bit about the hospital, give you a little insight as to the services we provide, talk about innovation in healthcare and our perception, how we're trying to bring that as a culture into our organisation through our 3 innovation pillars, and then talk about how we see that we're going to foster and secure innovation in the hospital going forward. So Beacon Hospital, it's up in Blackthorn Drive. It opened in 2006 as a one-ward quiet hospital. I joined in 2008, Ruth joined in 2006. So we've seen it grow from a one-ward hospital to now 180 inpatient beds. We've got 172 med-surg general purpose beds with 8 intensive care beds, which are quite topical at the moment. We've 1,300 staff from over 40 different countries, 281 consultants, 8 theatres, 4 endoscopy suites, a urology department, our specialist oncology day unit, 2 cardiac cath labs with cardiothoracic surgery as well, and an emergency department that's open from 10 to 7, Monday to Friday. So for us to be successful, we recognise that we need to continue to innovate with innovation that's based on quality. So the emblems you see at the top of the screen are some of the quality audits that we have to go through as a hospital on a regular basis. So the first gold one is Joint Commission International. So this is an external audit team who come from the States every 3 years, and they literally go through the hospital, literally from the roof to the basement. We've been on the roof with the auditors, we've been in the basement with the auditors, and they're looking through all of our hospital processes to make sure that we're reaching quality standards. And one of the things they look for is how we're using innovation to continue to grow and develop the hospital, continuing to offer high quality services to our patients. INAB is the Irish accreditation body for laboratory services in hospitals, and JAG is the accreditation body for endoscopy suites. So innovation in healthcare, why do we innovate and how do we innovate? So the first thing to recognise is a hospital is a complex service provider. It sounds so obvious a thing to say, But when we think about innovation in the hospital, we have so many things we need to consider. First and foremost is the patient and their family. They're going to be the center of everything we provide. So when we're thinking about an innovation project, we have to think, is this going to make things better? Is this going to offer better service to our patients and their families? And then we need to consider our stakeholders. So obviously our staff, but to think about that for a second, that's staff who are possibly clinicians like ourselves as physiotherapists, nurses, doctors, but it could be the finance team, it could be the patient services administration team, it could be the cleaners, it could be the dietetics team. So there's a huge complexity in the number of staff that we need to involve in our innovation projects. Then we think about customers outside of patients. So for example, the GPs that we serve, industry partners that may help to support innovation, our funders, obviously our health insurers, the Beacon Academy and our link with UCD and the other academic organisations in the country, they all have to be included and considered when we're thinking about innovation. And then it's obviously innovation is a key priority for healthcare. We all want to drive better quality of healthcare, better health, better quality of care. We want better patient outcomes. We all know that healthcare institutions in Ireland and across the world are looking at a rise in demand. The average age is going up, the needs of the elderly population is going to change, and we all have to deliver timely access to care, but constantly recognising that there is obviously financial implications on those things. So the drive to innovate and be more efficient and effective in how we deliver care is constantly there. We need to make sure we're compliant with regulation. Obviously, a big one with digital innovation is data protection, so making sure we're compliant from that perspective. But as I alluded to previously, we have the standards, the accreditation bodies that we need to make sure we're compliant with. So access to data analytics and trend analysis is really, really important for us. And then management structures. So every CEO in the country, be they for healthcare or for any other institute, any other organisation, is going to look at minimise waste, duplication, but also wanting to drive and make sure that we're continuing to offer the best service we can. So the innovation process at Beacon Hospital, when you work in a system with so many different disciplines and so many different people who are driven to continue to deliver really good care, there'd be a huge amount of idea generation. So we have tons and tons of ideas, and we're creating a system that create a flow of ideas. What becomes a little bit more challenging is selecting those ideas. So how do the ideas align with the strategic plan for the organisation? How do they align with the evolving needs of our patients? So we need to start filtering those ideas, but also making sure that the ideas we filter have life, and that the ideas that maybe we decide to put on hold, that there's a rationale for that, and that we're giving good feedback to the people who are coming up with those ideas, because we need to continue that idea generation. Then we help those ideas convert, so converting into products, services, and practices. So be that an evolving practice in the physiotherapy department, or it could be introducing a complex surgery and bringing that conversion through to the entire team who's going to be looking after that patient. And then diffusing. So we'll talk about this in a little while when I talk about medical records. So making sure that if we have an innovation that we can, if we need to, that we can diffuse it across the organisation. So we can't have an innovation that only works for one cohort of our staff. It needs to be applicable and it needs to be reachable for everybody who's involved in that project. So then to improve our patient care, we base it on 3 pillars. So we've got IT and online platforms, diagnostics and medical products, and healthcare partnerships. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the IT and online platforms. Before we do that, could we have the video of the hospital? Thank Thank you. So our logo is This is Modern Medicine, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit about how we have the finger on the pulse of innovation. So first, looking at IT and online platforms, Dr. McDreamy doesn't work in our hospital, but this is to say that this presentation is from the position of a clinician rather than from the developer who's working on all of these projects. So in a previous life, I worked in a hospital in Oslo in Norway, where in 2002, their government mandated that all hospitals had to transfer to an electronic patient record. And then I returned to Ireland in 2006, and I still remember getting that massive big yellow chart for patient records, not the beacon. And it was a bit of a shock coming back to a manual paper record. And then I came to Beacon, and we were starting a journey of moving to electronic patient records, but this would have been the day-to-day back in 2008. So we'd have had the shelves with the yellow chart, and then the purple folder, which is where we would have kept maybe the patient's drug prescriptions charts and certain other things. Folders go missing. When you've got written notes, you're looking at legibility issues, things like that. The yellow form is the surgery note, which is a crucial piece of documentation for any patient who comes through a hospital who's having surgery. And then the busy one, further on the right, is our OBS charts. That's how we keep track of patient's heart rate, blood pressure, a lot of information on that form. So these would be like I suppose the structure of any medical record in any hospital that's reliant on a paper system. And we, as a hospital, decided we were prioritizing a Go Digital project, and that project started back in 2008 really, but we progressed it further then in 2015. So we have our medical record, which is the grayish screenshots. That's where the nuts and bolts of the patient's record would be. That's where physiotherapy would input notes, nursing, lab, pharmacy, and then we've expanded it over the last few years to include a digital medical record as well, so that we can get more complex investigations saved there. It's got a much nicer layout, so it reads like a book rather than maybe a slightly old school screen, which would be the original. And then the next part of that project, which is really exciting, is we're looking at the op notes. So that crucial form, which is the surgical note that a surgeon fills out, usually in handwritten format at the end of a surgical case, and that gets filed physically in the chart. So we're moving that to electronic, which is going to be a huge transformation for the hospital. We'll no longer have any problems with legibility of op notes. We'll have full completion. We'll be able to pull data from it and audit it much better. But just to say it like that makes it sound like it's such a simple thing. I think clinical staff in the hospital have a joke that, we'll just make it electronic. Whereas the amount of work that's required for this, you have to get stakeholders, including consultants, nurses, all the people who use these documents to input as to how they're going to look, where they're going to sit. And then, of course, the developers will be able to tell me more about how we have to test it and trial it and make sure it doesn't crash, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a huge project that takes time. And I think that's probably what the IT guys have to teach us, the clinicians, over and over again, that these things are hugely complex to bring about. I just want to flick back to this slide, looking back to Grey's Anatomy again. We have the vision of you going electronic, meaning we've iPads everywhere, we've all these high-vis screens, but it's to sometimes think that that might not be the best solution. So we looked at iPads and we found that the breakage was very high. Then we added covers, which meant that they were quite heavy, so staff weren't using them. So then we translated to a computer on wheels, or a mobile unit, which means that a lot of the functions that we use through our IT system, like requesting radiology, requesting consults, can all be done at the patient's bedside, but in a user-friendly, using a user-friendly device. Then we have a pocket-based device, which is the thing you see furthest on the right, which can be used for the nursing staff to input the patient's OBS. So that busy form that we looked at right at the start can now translate into this phone-based device to track heart rate, blood pressure, et cetera, much smaller, much easier for the staff to use. But it created its own challenges in terms of some staff actually found it slower, so we had to go back and revamp it and try and speed it up a little bit. So it's not to automatically assume that these electronic solutions will automatically make life better for everybody. And then because we're getting more and more electronic-based records, we're now able to mine the data in a more efficient way. So we can pull data from the record, bring it into one source of truth for staff, and then generate reports, views, and dashboards. But that in itself causes, I suppose, the IT department a few challenges, and now everybody wants these reports. So again, we have to go back to the hospital strategy in terms of what are the things we prioritize and how we're going to produce these. And one of the things we looked at was our patient safety metrics. So we'd pull data on patient safety, things like skin tears, med events, falls, data protection, notifications, and all of those now go into one data source, which can be mined into 5 separate event codes, 5 separate reports, which then can easily generate dashboard graphs, etc., presentations, which means that we have more on-the-spot reporting, and we can watch trending in a much more live manner. And then the final piece I'm going to talk to you about is data-driven innovation. This is one of the projects we're working with the Research Academy on. So it's a physiotherapist who's doing a PhD looking at using AI and big data to drive patient care. So his project is called Sky Scanner, and he's using, his theory is that by using AI to do searches for particular conditions to allow in a live, in real time, to allow the physiotherapist or whoever's treating the patient get suggestions, get ideas in a faster manner. And I'm going to hand over, before I hand over to Ruth, I just want to go through this, the innovative strategic change. I think it's really, really important that if you're looking at digital innovation in a healthcare setting, you will have tons of people who can know want. In fact, you might have a lot more people that you may need to filter out the people in some ways to give yourself some targeted information. You will easily be able to create your story as to why you need to innovate, and you will need to sense how that innovation is going to be met across the organization. Are there teams that are ready, there are teams that need support for it? But obviously, once it's prioritized, then there is a sense of urgency to it. You need to consider, will that innovation be able to be rolled out across the organization, or is it to a particular team? Or if the goal is to roll it across the organization, how will that impact across teams with different specialities, different backgrounds? Crucially important is the financial allocation. So if it's an internal project, there'll obviously be budget meetings, that'll be considered. But if you're looking at driving an innovation, a healthcare product, a technology-based healthcare product, that you need to consider who will be your funder at the end of the project. So is this going to be something that a hospital will pay for? Will it be something the insurers pay for? Will it be something the client pays for? And that's something that we see lots and lots of products come through, but maybe the innovators wouldn't always have had those thought processes, so it's definitely something to consider. If we're going to bring in something innovative and change, we need to think, what are we going to stop doing? Need to make sure we have leadership commitment and review from leadership as to where we're at. Make sure it's customer driven, so if your customer is your patient, make sure it's something that's going to make life better for your patient, and keep it simple and quantifiable. And I'm going to hand over to Ruth. Thank you.
Thank you, Amish. So I get the lucky part of the presentation where I get to go through all of the things that we have done that are hugely innovative and show us as world leading in terms of healthcare. Us small hospital in Sandyford really is putting ourselves on the map worldwide. So if you've unfortunate enough to ever have been given a diagnosis of cancer or know someone who has had a diagnosis of cancer, they may have gone through a thing called molecular profiling. This is pretty new, and if you Google healthcare innovation, you can be sure next generation sequencing comes up. We're proud that Beacon has been doing molecular profiles for years now and really fine-tuning that. So just to simplify what that is, if you have a cancer diagnosis, you will have a tumour. And what we in the Beacon do is we look at the gene within that tumour to see where the defect is. And based on that, we can identify what treatment is more appropriate. Would it be chemotherapy, endocrine therapy, targeted therapies, immunotherapies, or whatnot? But I don't know if you remember, 30 years ago, if someone got a diagnosis of cancer, they would have automatically gone into chemotherapy. Now we're reviewing that and seeing, are the various different therapies appropriate for that tumour? Groundbreaking stuff. So really, what we want to show is that this has always been happening in the Beacon. We're doing it now. It's near what was kind of a last approach for cancer therapy is now the norm. You'd expect to get this. Other innovations that we're driving as a university affiliate and as a teaching hospital, training is huge for the Beacon Hospital. And if any of you have gone to cardiology, you may have had an echo, and an echo is an ultrasound of your heart. So we all kind of understand ultrasounds. When we've had babies, you get an ultrasound, very similar, except it's for your heart as opposed to anything else. And it takes probably a technician about a year to learn how to do an echo correctly, because the heart is pretty complex with all the arteries and vessels going in and out. We in the Beacon Hospital have become the first hospital in Europe to pilot artificial intelligence for echo training. This is an FDA-approved technology, and what's basically happening is we're teaching clinicians who would have no experience in cardiology and no experience in using echo within one day to do a correct echo using correct technique and getting the perfect image for that echo. So what would take normally an echo technician a year to learn, this program and this clinical trial that we're putting out will take a clinician who's not trained in cardiology to do as a day. So again, it's showing the importance of using artificial intelligence and capturing it to really have a huge knock-on effect translationally across the realm. You can imagine if we were to put in one of these echoes into a nursing home, you wouldn't be dragging the residents from the nursing home in to get an echo into the hospital, they could do it there. So it's a small step, but will have huge worldwide implications. So we're looking forward to the results of that trial. They should be out at the end of this year. Other innovations, again, I'm skipping through the various different specialities on purpose just to give you a glimpse of what we're doing here in the Beacon. You'll see that lovely picture of me, and I'm about to get VO2 max tested, which a lot of people would know. That's cardiopulmonary exercise testing, or looking to see how fit I am. But what's innovative about this is that, first of all, we're a clinical hospital, and we have set the sports lab up within a clinical setting. So I'm fortunate, I don't have very many illnesses or past medical history, but we have a load of patients who want to go back and get fit, who want to start on a fitness journey. So by going in and doing their fitness testing and seeing what their baseline is safely, we can give them a program which can bring them the whole way along. They don't have to be an athlete. They can literally go for 5 minutes to 30 minutes walking. But we have this in the Beacon in a controlled setting. You'll also see me on the right in the bod pod, which was a lovely experience. They were seeing how, now I won't say how fat I was, they were seeing what my body impedance was, which was basically how quickly I burn fat and what is my basal metabolic rate. They're very scientific terms, but it was going to tell me what I have to do to get to a next level of whatever level of fitness I want to be. If you combine the two, you've got a great picture of what your patient is like. So, is there a video here? Yeah, so can we play a video? That gives you an idea. What you saw there is Ailish, my colleague, and she was doing exactly what I was saying, the VO2 max testing. But what the Beacon have taken ahead from an innovative perspective is using that test, checking what Ailish's oxygen uptake, what her carbon dioxide output was, checking what her heart rate was, looking at her blood pressure throughout, checking her oxygen saturations, and getting a really lovely picture of what her body was doing when she was put up to a sub-maximal test. So when you've climbed, half a mountain, you're feeling pretty tired, you want to know how your body is doing. They've taken that information within the sports lab at Beacon Hospital, and they're now using applications that you can use at home, and one of the such applications is Training Peaks. What this allows is that we all have gone to hospitals, we've gotten tests, and once we get the all clear, it's fantastic, we forget about it for another year. But this Training Peaks allows you to comply with a training program remotely in your own home, stay connected with the hospital, and also to gauge how well you're doing, giving you feedback as you're going through your exercise program. You can imagine for an athlete, it's good to have, but for someone who has any medical condition, to know to be connected in and for someone to be observing you is really the way forward from a healthcare perspective. So robotics, we put it up because it would be a shame not to say we have robotics, but I know most of the hospitals, most of the private hospitals for sure, and I believe, I want to say it was Tala, they got a robot in recently. This is no longer a new thing, but I say we got a robot in very early on from an innovative perspective. But what we're doing more differently here is that we're evaluating the effectiveness of this robot, and we're doing simulation training. So not only are we getting the robot in to do various different surgeries, predominantly in colorectal or in urology, we're now looking at how we train our doctors to use these robots and doing simulation training so that we can advance healthcare to the next generation. So they were kind of the major things that we're doing within healthcare, but what really I would love to speak today is about how we got to be so innovative and how our tagline is modern medicine and what has helped us to get there and to ensure that we maintain and we honour that tagline. And it's all about partnerships. It's all about pushing our industrial boundaries so that we become part of a larger network. That is why we have been so successful as a hospital. So there are plenty of innovation and partnerships that we have, and these are just to name but a few. We have an academic partnership with UCD, professional development partnership with the Mater Hospital Lean Academy, plenty of service engagement partnerships with our industry partners, but one namely is with GE and radiology, where we have a managed equipment services, ensuring that we have the most up-to-date radiological diagnostics in the country. So I know if I was sick, I'd want to go somewhere that has the best diagnostics. And GE and that partnership with GE, that managed equipment service partnership, assures us of that for at least the next 10 years. We have plenty of stakeholder engagements with Clinical Trials Network, and we have European engagement on our Horizon 2020 projects. And that European engagement is very important because it keeps you cutting edge and making sure that we're involved in all of the European trials that are on offer, or as many as we can be on offer. And then finally, our international engagement, Ailish spoke about, and we shouldn't speak too fast about this because this really drives innovation within our hospital. It's our regulatory body. We all know about HICWA, and we're watching HICWA, clearly we're all watching the news every day these days, but HICWA is involved in it. Private hospitals are regulated not by HICWA currently, but by Joint Commission International, which is a huge organisation with 1,600 standards, there's 1,600 rules that we have to abide by. They are moving, and they're moving into an innovation space. So as a hospital, we have to show where innovation has driven quality of patient care. And we showed earlier the symbiotic relationship quality and innovation have, and you'll see that as we go through this presentation. So I'm not going to go through all those partnerships, but I'm going to go through one or two that I think people might be interested in for their own businesses. So the first one is the UC Beacon Hospital Academy, which was set up in 2015 by our CEO, Michael Cullen. And you see Leo was there. He was the Minister for Health at the time. And Des Fitzgerald, who was the Vice President for University College Dublin. It was a fantastic partnership between one of the leading universities in Ireland and also Beacon Hospital, who we are proud about our modern medicine. So putting the two together, we could only succeed. I'm sharing with you our work streams because, again, I feel this may be of interest to various other businesses. These are 2015 work streams. They've obviously progressed a huge amount in the last 5 years. But the work stream was number one was to establish an education and training centre. If you do any research on healthcare innovation or innovation at all, you'll see how you rank yourself from an innovation index is how much you're investing in education, how much you're investing in research and development. The Beacon Hospital back in 2015 had started that journey, and you'll see now the successes we've had from that. The work streams are there, I'll let you read them yourself, but if you flip down to point 4 there, if you can read it, the writing is quite small, we wanted to drive innovation in healthcare in 2015. We wanted to target 2 transformative concepts in healthcare, connected health and personalised medicine. And you'll see as we go through how we have done that. So some very quick highlights for driving an academy within your own business or within your own institute and partnering with a local university or just extending your network is that we've seen 1,700 students through on our clinical places. We've an accredited master's programme all by ourselves. So while UCD have accredited the programme is run with Beacon Hospital and also with the Mater in Vincent's. But that is huge for a private hospital to be driving education to that level. And when you drive education at that level, especially at a master's level, you're automatically driving a culture of innovation. This is just one of a good example because, again, about 20 years ago, if you look at innovation in healthcare, there was always targeted on doctors and what are doctors innovating and what is the drugs. We don't feel that now. We feel it's very much interprofessional workshops in innovation, bringing the entire team together so that you're not missing one major stakeholder's point of view. Eilish said earlier, we're lucky that we've driven a culture of innovation and a culture of creativity. But ideally, you need to get it from all sides. It can't just be he who shouts loudest gets the idea in. One of the most successful partnerships we have, and you'll see the benefit this has on innovation, is our Lean Academy, where we have a school for Lean and Lean Six Sigma management within the hospital. This school is predominantly for our staff and for our consultants. We have, and again, I'll talk to you about what Lean and Lean Six Sigma is for those who don't know, but we've trained 242 staff in the fundamentals of Lean, as in what is Lean and what is Lean Six Sigma. We've also 30 staff who have done 6 months training courses and received professional certificates. And we have 3 staff who are black belts. So it's kind of a little bit like karate, except it doesn't follow necessarily the belts, but you get a white belt, and that's when you do a day's training. And you get a green belt when you do 6 months training. And you get a black belt when you've done a year's training. And black belts, when you've got that sort of management approach, you're highly employable and you're very much sought after. We are super lucky to have this pyramid where we have a lot of staff on white, a moderate amount of staff on green, and 3 strong black belts. So it really sets up an organisation. When we set it up about 3 years ago, this was our goal. So we have achieved this. So you're saying, you're talking about Lean, I don't know what you're talking about. So Lean methodology, why I even mention it is that it's a management approach. And we know from the research that it does increase productivity, it does boost profitability, but most importantly, it improves customer service. But for this talk, the biggest advantage is that it encourages creativity, increases the volume of new ideas, and provides a framework. So when you introduce Lean into any organisation, you automatically take a breath, you slow it down for 5 minutes and allow people to give a view that's as basic can be, but you also give them a voice. And that voice of customer, voice of stakeholder is what generates your next innovative idea. So Lean and Six Sigma, they've been around since 1990. Lean meaning, Lean is all about improving the speed or reducing any waste. So I doubt there's any business that will present today that doesn't say there isn't some amount of waste in their business. I would love to be that confident to say there isn't. So if you're continuously adopting a lean management approach, slowly but surely you're streamlining your practice, that you're improving the speed of whatever that business may be. And the Six Sigma is predominantly on stats and on data, but it just ensures whatever your business is that you're having less variation. So you're giving a standard product out. And you can imagine from a hospital perspective, that's all about patient satisfaction, employee engagement, greater profitability and improved culture. It has worked really well for us in the hospital. Rather than reading that slide, from a business perspective, from what we found as well, is that it really did drive home what the customer, or for us, what the patient needed, what our GPs needed, what our health insurers needed, and what all our customers were. It also made sure that innovation didn't just happen when we went to a boardroom and decided we were having a quarterly innovation meeting. It happened on a day-to-day basis, and it was a huge cultural shift. So to give you some examples of our stock, of our lean projects that we have worked, a lot of businesses around Sandyford would have procurement or stock. And as a hospital, you can imagine our stock is absolutely ginormous, especially with the growth of the hospital over the last 14 years. So our theatre, which is what we use in theatre to support our operations, it accounts for 52% of our total spend at Beacon Hospital. So those numbers are very large. And we have new procedures happening every single day with changes in consultants and very much complex case mixes. So if you've got a 52% spend in your theatre, you want to make sure you're as tight as possible or you're as lean as possible. So from an innovation perspective, our main theatres decided to use lean, listen to all of the stakeholders, hear what was going on, and they moved for theatres. And this is just a basic output of what the innovative strategies they used were. They did a thing called a 5S. So if you imagine if you walked into the theatre storeroom on the left, my left rather, you couldn't find anything. And if you're turning around theatre cases every 15 minutes, you want to streamline that up. So they use a thing called a 5S, which is sorting it, standardizing, sustaining it. And this is the output on the right. What that did is that it had a 91% reduction in the value of out-of-date stock. And it also had a 45% reduction in nurse stock prep time. If you annualize that, the savings are huge. So I guess our point is, yes, you can bring in innovation from robotics and immunotherapy and genomic medicine, but you can also bring it down to a very low level of getting whatever business that you're working on, making sure it's as tightly run as possible. And this was a really good example of that. Another example, and you can imagine we're going to talk about patient flow, we're a healthcare organisation, was how can we use Lean Six Sigma management to improve patient flow and bed occupancy. We put two pictures up there because this project was led out by various different staff members, and we also had our consultant orthopaedic surgeon, our anaesthetist there, but it was very much a team working project, saying we can look at any procedure. We are all very familiar with total hip replacements, total knee replacements, cruciate replacements, but how do we reduce any non-value add in the patient journey? I know for one, if I've ever been in hospital, I always look around going, why am I waiting another half an hour? And why could that not be done sooner? So we try to use that thinking and try to reduce length of stay just for one operation to see is there any learnings from that one operation that we could do. This project, again, the project was we knocked 16 hours off a length of stay for a patient, and that can obviously move on to various different other procedures. But the project in itself for this one procedure allowed us 17 additional available beds per 6 months. So huge. And this is just in one particular procedure. If you can imagine, we do hundreds of procedures. If you're using that lean methodology and taking the learnings from one project to another, the benefits and the profitability and your productivity go through the roof. So again, innovation right from the ground up. This is an interesting one. Everybody wants to eliminate, this is another project, it was about releasing time for the nurses to care. It seems like an odd thing, but our nurses from various regulatory bodies and various different things, they have a huge amount of tick boxing to do in documentation. The world has become very medical legal and it's litigious, so we have to do an awful lot of document. We have to document everything we do in healthcare. So we did what was called a spaghetti map, and you'll see the lines, it's very messy, and it's messy on purpose to show the amount of movement that a nurse would have when they're caring for a patient. And this project in particular from an innovation was, the nurses were saying, we don't get time to care for the patients, we're distributing meds, we're doing X, Y, and Z, we want to sit with the patient and see how they're actually doing. So this project was fantastic insofar as it identified the amount of work we were asking our nurses to do and the amount of work we were asking all other healthcare professions. But most importantly, we're always going to ask people to work, obviously, when they're in the hospital, but it looked at the overlap of what a nurse was doing to what a healthcare assistant was doing and what we could do and how we could role divide between the two. This project has resulted in moving and being more flexible in our professional boundaries and seeing, can we let our healthcare assistants who want to learn, can we train them up to let them help the nurses? Can we free up our nurses so they're able to sit by the bedside and see how that patient is doing and not running in and running out and having to document and more time on documentation? So it's resulted in the nurses being more satisfied. It's resulted in our healthcare assistants being more satisfied and going on a training program. We set up the Healthcare Assistant Training Academy from that, and we're the only hospital in Ireland to recognise how much our healthcare assistants do in a hospital. Again, if you've ever had a relative in a hospital, you'll see healthcare assistants are all over these hospitals. And they don't have a continuous professional development program, not like we have in physiotherapy or nursing or medicine. So we have set up a Healthcare Assistant Academy for our HCAs with the view to broadening their training and then to getting that regulated in time. So another project that we would have run out that really came from an innovation perspective was that we were doing a huge amount of research. So we had our academic, and we have our academic affiliation. And again, I said to you, by investing in education, you can drive your research and you can drive your development. So it made sense for us to really formalise up our research institute and to show the world that we were happy to collaborate on clinical trials, on an innovative research that was going on in Europe and also internationally. We took it really seriously on purpose. And again, I think this is why this innovative research institute has stood the test of time and is really expanding at a rate of knots, because we formalised it up and got leadership involved straight away. Our institute board is made up of our medical directors and all of our consultants who are leading their individual areas of specialty. And that's why I'm putting it up there, to show you that you could have an innovation, you can introduce all you want from an innovation perspective, but if you don't bring leadership in from the start, you won't get as much traction as we did. So some of the innovative trials that have come out of this research institute, and this is very timely with COVID, is that Beacon Hospital are the only private hospital in Ireland currently who are involved in a worldwide clinical trial on COVID. This trial is called REMAP-CAP. It's very long-winded. I wouldn't dream of explaining what REMAP-CAP is. But suffice to say, if you or a relative are unfortunately sick enough and you end up in our ICU, and you end up in the ICU within 1 day of your symptoms, you'll be given an opportunity to go on a clinical trial. And that clinical trial is international. And what it's doing is it's very much adaptive. So it will put in what your signs and symptoms are. It will speak with your intensivist, your consultant, and it will decide what is the best treatment regime for you based on the evidence we have. But if you know anything about clinical trials, usually they take about 6 months to a year for outcomes to pop up. This is a much more faster trial in that all of the findings have been accelerated. So you're going into a trial that you know is going to give you the best drugs possible based on your presentation there and then. And the feedback so far for REMAP-CAP is phenomenal. It certainly isn't, you'll hear in the radio, sure, I couldn't say any more. There isn't one drug that'll kill REMAP-CAP yet. There isn't a vaccine either. We're not saying that. We're saying that we're involved in a worldwide clinical trial to try and manage COVID currently. And it's really impressive for a private hospital to be partnering in this. Another one of our clinical trials that we're involved is called Sprint SARI. Again, this is just a database where we manage with the patient consent. So again, all patient consent, we manage details of how you've presented with any pneumonias. It's put into a database. Worldwide, people can access it, how the patient would have responded to treatment and what is the best course of action. Because it's anonymous, it's international, and everyone then can build on that. And it's what we'll find, and I think we'll probably sit here in 10 years' time and say clinical trials, and we see it now, clinical trials, they do take time. They are accelerating, but for Beacon Hospital to be involved in these worldwide trials now can only be of benefit to us going forward, and it'll welcome more and more trials. So it was a leap of faith that we took, and I think it's proven really successful, and we look forward to welcoming more of these trials into the hospital. Other trials, and again, this is the research and development that's driving this, would be another trial was a European trial we're involved in on cancer. And again, one of our major service lines would be oncology and cancer care. But we have found that an awful lot of patients are coming to us, they're getting their cancer treatment, they're getting it from the minute of their initial diagnosis right through to their radiotherapy to the end. But there is a little gap, and that's not just for Beacon Hospital, that's worldwide, in that how are we addressing quality of life? How are we looking at functional capacity? And what is is the role in society for these patients when they have finished their cancer journey? And this is a project that we worked under the Marie Curie Foundation. It's been hugely successful, and some of the successes of this project have been patients who have undergone breast cancer. They have to rehabilitate the limb that they had possibly had a mastectomy on. How are we teaching that? Can we teach that remotely? Do we have to bring patients back in? How are we looking at the quality of life of those patients? And by using remote medicine, it's really driving the patient satisfaction, the stakeholder satisfaction, and there's some of the outputs that we would have gotten from that. There are many partners in these projects, such as Spain and Germany, and you're getting a viewpoint of all the different health and health cares that are in the European partners. That's that. So I guess just to end it, I mean, I could speak here all day. I don't know if you want me to speak here all day. The innovation focus, yes, it is on, and you know, of course we're going to do immunotherapy. Of course we're going to do point of care testing. That basically means bedside testing and getting results straight away. We're going to work on biosensors and trackers. Who isn't working on it? We are going to drive artificial intelligence and next generation sequencing, but mostly what we feel has helped is that it's all about pushing our network, pushing our boundaries, and that's why Sandyford driving their digital wellness, driving this innovation is super important to really realise what we have in Sandyford and to push the boundaries and to partner with people and not think in siloed, think outside the box. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth Whelan and Eilish Daly. We're now be joined by Susanna Murphy and also Punitha Sinnapan. We'll go through our sort of Q&A session. Now, I suppose one thing I picked up upon, if I can talk to you both, Eilish and Ruth, is more Ruth. My wife is a nurse. I get it all the time about admin work when she should be caring for patients. She doesn't work on Beacon, but it's great to see that you're addressing that. She'll be delighted.
Yeah, and it's not, you know what, it's not, just to be super clear, it's not that, you know, the Beacon author are making them do all the admin work, but if you can imagine, when you're a clinician, you're there to care for the patient. It's not your fault that the world has gone so litigious and, you know, medical legal. So ideally, we need to, first of all, we need to work with the tablets and whatnot, or whatever the IT solutions are to try and track that data. We need to look at the actual roles and simple, innovative stuff as, do this person, just because they have a degree in nursing, do you really need someone like that, or could someone else do the job and then free them up to actually care for the patient?
Yeah, it's about, I suppose, having the opportunity to take stock.
100%.
Sometimes we're all, you know, caught up in what we're doing. So, you know, it's good to see innovations and changes like that. Punitha, if I could just bring you in. Look, technology, innovation, it's happening at a rapid rate. A lot of it just goes over my head. I'm trying to keep up as much as I can. But in simple terms, cars are now communicating. We either have car parts communicating with the car or the car communicating back to the manufacturer. So what does that mean for the end user?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, right? So I think for end user, as a car owner myself, right, so I would like the manufacturer of the car understand what is the consumer behavior and what kind of service will be useful for me. Like, for example, if you want to change something in the vehicle, the OEM expect you to update a software, for instance. You don't want to have a lot of manual operation where you need to schedule the software update and all. Like, if the OEM understand the behavior, like this day, this particular day, and the car is parked in this spot and this location for this many hours, and it's been going on, this pattern has been repeating for multiple weeks, and then some autonomous process can be integrated, so without user intervention. So I don't have to worry as a user, I don't have to worry about things that changing, but there are change has been integrated in automatic way, and also bringing in all this smart infrastructure and helping the users to use the facilities in a smart way is what it's all about, that consumer gonna enjoy in the future.
Okay. You mentioned agriculture earlier on. I just stumbled across a television program last week where it was the harvest, and the combine harvesters, the machines, the farm machinery, were, you know, speaking back to the mechanic, but the mechanic was in an office sitting behind a desk looking at a laptop. So it's completely different to the traditional mechanic. So what it was constantly relaying information back and forth to the office, and they were able to pinpoint where an issue could develop before that issue developed. So it reduced the downtime for that machinery when it was very important to harvest, the crop. So it's incredible how it's developed, and it's more efficient, in terms of cost saving, and farming becomes more productive. Susanna, if I could just ask you, virtual gaming, a happy employee is a productive employee, but also it's a great outlet for people, especially now with the pandemic, with restrictions. You must get a range of people from all ages, using your facility.
We do, and actually it was quite surprising because when we did open, you're trying to define what you think your market might be. In actual fact, the corporate market was our biggest market, right? But since offices have, people are working remotely, etc., now you see more families coming. So more families, parents with their kids, or, small groups from schools. I think one point that I might not have made in the presentation is that the majority of the people that come to us have never obviously put on a headset and actually have no interest in gaming at all. But when they do come, they just let their guard down and, let the hair down and just really enjoy it. I think it is an outlet, certainly. I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, whenever the stage 3 came in, we were quite worried as a business. We thought, listen, are we going to have to close? So there were, from my point of view, there were 2 things. One is, are the staff going to want to work? The other thing is, are the customers going to want to come? And are people going to be cancelling their bookings and their events? And in actual fact, we saw that very, very few people cancelled their events. People wanted to get out and do something in a very safe way, which is what they've been able to do. I think, this is a really tough time on everyone. And I think, as you say, that outlet is extremely important. And we've been able to help people just to, I suppose, switch off from this world for half an hour or 45 minutes, which has just been great.
Yeah, no, that's extremely important. If I can go back to Eilish and Ruth, the pandemic, COVID-19, it's like it's turned the hospital upside down, inside out. What's the biggest change, or what are the top 5 biggest changes that you've experienced?
I think if we look at where we are now, so obviously when it first started back in the spring, as a private hospital, we had a huge change in that we became a HC hospital for a period of time. So that changed for a lot of private patients. They were no longer covered by their insurance, so their ways of accessing care, etc., changed. So the patients we were looking after changed. A lot of our outpatient services pretty much closed, so the work that we were doing changed. So in physiotherapy, we'd have had a lot of people come see us with knee pain and back pain. That stopped. So a lot of our physiotherapists had to retrain and learn how to look after patients with respiratory presentations or on ICU and things like that. That's now going back to some degree of normality. So I suppose what the big change now is the day-to-day. So like every business is experiencing, we all have getting used to treating a patient with a mask on. So for example, this morning I had a patient who came to see me, and the poor lady was just so nervous. She was so nervous. She had a mask, she had a visor. She was standing at the complete opposite end of the room, which if you're coming to see a physiotherapist is really challenging, because by definition, you're going to be close to the person, and most of the session was actually spent reassuring her and almost going through the visuals of making sure she could see that we were wiping down equipment and making sure that you're washing your hands for twice as long as you normally would, just to reassure. So there's an awful lot of reassurance. And then as a hospital, we've had to increase that by doing, say, our COVID screening questions. So anyone that comes for an outpatient appointment now will get a text message that will ask, have you travelled? Have you been in contact? So we've had to do a lot of work very quickly to get those things up and running. We looked for a period, we were offering, say, digital or remote teleconferencing, so patients can attend by video consult, and there was a huge demand for that, but that has completely dropped off. People now, I think, want to come and attend their appointments, but let's see what happens in the next little while. It's great that we have that as an option. But the bottom line is we still have patients who need to be looked after. So we've had to...
And did you, in terms of video conferencing, were you able to still deliver a physiotherapy service?
Obviously, if somebody needed hands-on treatment, you can't do that through video consult. So there would have been a cohort of people that it was as best as we could alternative in that period when people weren't coming in. So when we were in full lockdown mode and a lot of people weren't coming in even for their medical appointments, it was a very good way for us to be able to give some input to patients. But once we were able to start allowing people to come back in for appointments, that picked up pretty quickly. Okay. But there are a cohort who really need to touch base purely for advice. Okay. And it's a great option to have for those people.
And Ruth, is there anything that stands out for yourself?
Well, I'm a self-confessed complete hypochondriac, so I was delighted
the wrong place to work.
The wrong place to work. I think that's why I worked there for so long. It can answer all my needs at all times. But for my perspective, COVID drove innovation to another level. So, like Ailish and I clearly like to innovate. We're enthusiastic, kind of entrepreneurial, want to get there. But COVID really pushed that whole thing forward. So yes, we were doing telehealth and physiotherapy. Telehealth worked really well in oncology and rheumatology and in certain areas that actually it's just about reviewing medication, reviewing how patients feel. In our lab and our diagnostics, we are super proud of how we've managed COVID. We have a COVID suite where patients, you don't go into the Beacon Hospital for an operation without getting a COVID test 24 hours before. You get your result within 16 to 24 hours. If we have an emergency department patient who comes in, we can test you within 45 minutes. And that's a luxury that we have. But that's innovation in itself. And that's forward planning from back in January or February, seeing that this was coming. Well, clearly nobody really saw it in January. We kind of looked at it in Wuhan then. But really February, March, and being super proactive and innovative and setting up COVID task force and saying, okay, what are we going to need? And looking at antigen and antibody testing and bringing that forward. Other hugely innovative things which I think are going to benefit for the patient is, okay, Zoom, everyone's using Zoom, but now we have much more sophisticated interactive meetings that we don't tend to use Zoom. We have to put various different privacy settings on because of data protection, but we're getting much better compliance with our consultants attending multidisciplinary meetings, not only nationally, but also internationally if we need international consult, where it wasn't always available because it was predominantly you come into the meeting, you sit down, you go through it. Now with our radiology and our diagnostics, you're getting much more of a buy-in. And I personally think a quicker turnaround of diagnostics and quicker turnaround of clinical reasoning and multidisciplinary output. So far it's been huge. It's been successful from an innovation perspective.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think across all industries.
Yeah.
COVID, there's opportunity, not taking away the seriousness of COVID, but it's accelerated research that was there, and it's made a lot more resources more accessible. Talking to an international consultant who might be based in America, specialised in a particular field, now they're maybe more comfortable doing it over Zoom or Teams or whatever it may be. So it's they're the benefits that we see. Susanna, do you ever see virtual gaming happening remotely? So instead of going to a fixed physical environment to carry it out, will you be able to offer that service remotely in years to come?
Will we? Absolutely. Do we do it at the moment? Not in a way where the technology works really well and that you can have multiplayer. So what's great about what we do is that you can bring a team of people together, whether it's a family or a group of friends. What's great is you can bring them together and they're playing the same game in the same place, right? So it's very different to sitting in your living room with your one solo playing completely on your own. It's much more of a social experience. Will it be in the future? Absolutely. I mean, you can buy an Oculus Quest for 400 quid, and there are multiplayer games that are coming out where you can have 2 or 3 people together. And they'll just, so yes, absolutely. We constantly think of how we could take this on the road because we are a location-based entertainment facility. So you're coming to Sandyford to play. But yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, don't move from Sandyford.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging to move from Sandyford, but I'd say in 10 years we won't recognise the world that we're in if we could see into the future.
Yeah.
Punitha, if I could just ask you a question. I know you touched on it before, just in relation to cars and agricultural equipment communicating, but it's not limited to to machines like that. We can have appliances in our home that will be communicating. We'll be able to predict, when something is about to go wrong, be it the heating or a leak or plumbing. Is that the way you see it, in the future? Everything within our life, not only our phone, but all appliances, all the infrastructure that we rely on communicates with us, every second of every hour, of every day, of every month.
Yeah, yeah, certainly, Connor. So definitely, right? So that's the concept we call smart home, right? So every component, every devices in the at home able to communicate and transmit to the hub and share the information. In that way, we can apply a predictive analytic models, and we can do a predictive early defect detection on any component, any parts in the vehicle. At home. And not just that, right? Even if you look into the road infrastructure, even traffic light, lampposts, and everything can speak in language, data language, so that uh, authority who is maintaining those infrastructure, even on the street, they are able to manage that, right? So they know what's happening and how long is the life cycle that can be sustained. Yes, of course.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it making my life a lot easier over the next number of
Yeah,
months and
definitely.
years.
Even you can see probably in the future, Amazon is not going to deliver with a human. So they have a concept called last mile delivery, where they only deliver to a warehouse, and robotics or car will deliver to the to the home address that they want to deliver. They don't need human interaction in that last 5 kilometer radius.
Okay. Thanks, Punitha. Just lastly, Ailish, in your bio, I suppose, should I ask?
Worried now.
No, I suppose patient healthcare doesn't stop at the hospital anymore. I suppose it's the first stage of patient healthcare. Look, and you mentioned, helping patients to achieve exercise targets. So how do you do that? And is it successful?
What we're finding is that it's successful for the short, it's wrong to say short term, but it's very successful immediately. So any patient that goes through a treatment, not just in Beacon, in lots of hospitals, will be supported by their team to look at what their goals are after their surgery or their cancer treatment, whatever it is. And usually you'd have a team of doctors, nurses, physios around you to help you get there. And then when I work clinically, would have been very interested with cancer patients is how to help them continue, say, activity goals afterwards. So we find that a lot of people who go through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, stop exercising for that period. And then when they are going to start again, it's a very scary time. They've lost their confidence. They're not sure how much they can do or can't do, or whether they're doing the right thing or not. And every ache or pain becomes a question as to whether it's something more sinister. So what I would have done a lot of work with was supporting people to start exercising and try to give people the fundamentals of keeping those behavior changes going. But what we would have known, or what we would have found, is that in the period where somebody had a lot of that high support period immediately afterwards, when they have their physios, they have their consultants, they have their nurses checking in a lot, that people achieve their goals in that period. And then the healthcare provider pulls back and the person is trying to continue in that lifestyle, and it doesn't always happen. So I think what we're trying to work with through the sports lab is give people maybe those more long-term, not solutions is the wrong word, but long-term behaviors to keep active. Because what we know is, it used to always strike me, or it continues to strike me, that if we tell somebody by taking this tablet, you will reduce your risk of cancer recurring by X%, we'll take it. But by exercising, you're going to reduce your risk of cancer recurrence. And for some reason, we don't always do that. People don't always take that on. So it's trying to maybe give people everyone needs to not cut the ties, but reduce the reliance on hospital after having been through serious illness. But equally, the hospital wants to continue to support to make sure people adapt those better lifestyles. So that was what I would have done a lot of work with. And I think we certainly would have made a lot of strides, but by trying to link with technology, trying to link with digital solutions, I think have a huge role to play in continuing on and giving that support in the long term.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Okay, no, that's great. I would just I would like to, I suppose, before I thank everybody, I suppose it just shows that the businesses that we have in Sandyford Business District are very diverse. Each of the businesses that we've spoken to here are cutting edge, they're innovative, and it's great to see that happening in Sandyford Business District. And by being innovative, it allows companies evolve and meet the challenges of COVID head on, remain open, remain in business, and keep people employed, which is really important. I'd like to extend my warm thanks to Punitha Sinnapan from Cubic Telecom, Susanna Murphy, Zero Latency Dublin, and also Eilish Daly and Ruth Whelan, Beacon Hospital.